Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my December wrap-ups for 2024, the last month of the year, and I had a really good reading month. I feel like it was just winter and I was just really focused on hitting my goal of 52 books for a year, which is a book a week, and I actually ended up reading 8 books, and I surpassed my goal and ended up reading 57 books. So I had a pretty good month. I actually found my favorite book of the year in December, so I'll get into that. The first book I read was The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. I gave this a 4 out of 5. This is my favorite genre, historical fiction, and it's a region which I haven't really read about a lot yet or knew a lot about, which is Iran. So this was set in the 1950s in Iran and talks about basically what I learned was in Iran at the time, or maybe still currently, there the people are led, or the country is led by the president and also the Shah. So basically during this time it was very conflicted, and there were people who were rebelling or uprising. So this book talks about the stationery shop where people use as a way to send messages to each other through books, which I actually did happen during the revolution. And this book focuses more on a love story between these two characters and how they were able to use the stationery shop as a safe haven while having a backdrop as the revolution was happening. This book was really good, and the only reason I gave it a 4 instead of a 5 was that I felt it was a bit too short, and honestly, if it was fleshed out a bit longer, I would definitely give it an easy 5. The next book I read or listened to was a memoir by Rebel Wilson. It's called Rising by Rebel Wilson, and I gave this a 5 out of 5. If you've watched my channel before, I find it really weird to not give memoirs 5 out of 5 because it's just them telling their personal story and their journey. I do recommend that if you're interested in audiobooks to listen to this memoir because she narrates it herself and she does so many quips and one-liners or comments about something she just read that I feel would translate weird in a reading format, or maybe it's not even included because it felt a bit improv, but she's also a professional performer. This book was good because I'm a big pop culture head. The beginning was kind of boring, talking about her upbringing and stuff in Australia, but it gives a lot of context for things that come up later on in her life. But I really enjoyed it, especially once she moved to Hollywood, and I really like her insight about her experience in Hollywood because it reminded me of Seth Rogen's memoir, where Rebel Wilson was just truly a regular person like me and you, and she made her way into Hollywood versus someone that was born into it or had an uncle or aunt into it. So a lot of her encounters in Hollywood, her reaction was very relatable, and I was that's probably how I would react to that situation. I also really enjoyed hearing about her weight loss journey. I actually don't really follow her life for a few years. So it was really interesting for me to find out that she actually is a mother now. She has a child, and also her having her self-discovery about being in romantic relationships with both men and women. Okay, so my next 3 books, in the spirit of December and the holidays, they're all romance reads. So if you're not interested in these reviews, skip ahead. It's the next 3 books. 2 of them, in my defense, were book club books. So, we just wanted to have a light read for the holidays. One of them, though, was my decision and my choice, but I actually really enjoyed that book. So the first one was a book club book, and it's How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Meghan Quinn. I gave this a surprising 4 out of 5, just because I knew going in that this is a holiday romance, there's going to be some smut, and I just turned my brain off, and you know what? It delivered what I expected, and I didn't have to overthink it, and it was just an easy read. So basically, this was just, I felt it was like a Netflix holiday movie come into book form. And it's basically about 2 characters who were really close when they were young, and then one of them, and then they lost contact, and then now 10 or 12 years later they're back into the town. One of them had never left, one had gone to a big city and come back, and now they're in this kind of weird and I guess friends, now enemies, and they go turn to lovers. And basically how they reconcile is this town is Christmas town on crack. So there's this annual Christmas competition to see who can have the most Christmas spirit. So these 2 protagonists who are going to be lovers are competing, and they're enemies, But things happen, sparks happen, and they start to fall in love with each other. Let's just say, after reading this book, and because it's a smutty holiday book, I will never look at a candy cane the same way again, and I feel candy canes deserve to have consent as well. The next book I read for this holiday theme is The Christmas Orphans Club by Becca Freeman. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it because the book really focuses on the importance of friendships, platonic friendships, not romantic friendships, although there is some romance involved. Basically, the Christmas Orphans Club is for friends that don't really have family or people to do Christmas with, so every Christmas they have an orphans Christmas together. But this book starts with one of the people moving from New York to LA. So what's going to happen going forward? So basically, these four orphans kind of have like a test, trial, and error of their friendship, what it'll look like going forward. And I just really enjoyed this book. And also, if you're a millennial like me, I think you really enjoy it because there were tons of pop culture references. The final Christmas book I read was a book club book, and this was A Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and good things about this book was there was zero smut. I think the most smut was a kiss. And basically, this is a classic switcheroo. Basically, we have twin sister. One lives in a small town, runs a family bakery. One is in LA, being a big hotshot in like a baking show. But the hotshot sister in LA, who's doing the baking show, she gets a concussion, so she can't like film. So her and her twin sister switch places, and they both fall in love with men in the respective new city slash town they're in. And basically everything just comes tied together really good at the end. You can kind of guess what happens, but let's just say this is a classic small town romance. So it was just a very pleasant read. The next book I read is my number one book of the year, so it's just awesome because I found it right at the end of the year. It's called Dust Child, and I'm gonna butcher the name, so I'm sorry in advance, by Wen Fan K Ma, and I gave it a 5 out of 5. I freaking love this book because, again, favorite genre, historical fiction, and I just love books that span multi-generation, multi-decades, and kind of talks about there's no really like right or wrong. It's just different people living their experiences, and like the ending wasn't like a happy ending. It was just like, well, that's life. But it wasn't like a sad ending either. It was just like there was closure, but it wasn't like, wow, I'm so glad I got that closure. So this book was so beautiful. I'm so sad it's over, and I felt like I could keep reading about all the character stories and all the side characters that were introduced, and also learn about their lives. But basically, this book is set in Vietnam, and it starts from the Vietnam War in like the 50s and 60s up until like I think 2006 or 2016, something like that. And it said it spanned multi-generation and multi-perspective. So as you can guess, it talks about people in Vietnam and their experience, deciding to move from the rural countryside where there was war happening to move to the capital, Saigon, and having an opportunity to make money. However, these women making this choice to take this opportunity, they would have to work in these bars, but would service and cater to American GIs. And we kind of learn about these American GIs, how they were kind of like fell into the propaganda of serving their country, but they didn't realize like until they actually came to Vietnam what war is actually like and how it's actually awful. And just having these characters come together and either being awful and these women being abused by these GIs, but obviously not everyone's the same. So there are some GIs that were very nice and thoughtful, and some interpersonal relationships develop. But then you have all these kids that are half Vietnamese, half American. Some GIs take these Vietnamese women back with them to America. Some leave them here even though they treated them really well because they have their life to get back to in America. And we talk about these kids who are like half American, half Vietnamese, and how they're kind of seen as dust child, like these kids are just kind of like left behind, that no one wants them. And it's just such a great book. I kind of want to read it again. It was just so awesome. So I really recommend this book if you like this genre, but even if you don't, I think it was a really great read because it put a lot of context in the Vietnam War and how all these people were impacted by it. I said the second last book I read, but I actually did read 2 more books before the year ended. Like I said, it was a very, it's reading season in December when it's the holidays, right? So the next one I read was also a top 10 book. This was also a late find. It was recommended by a coworker, and this was a book I definitely would not gravitate towards at all. So I'm really glad it was recommended to me. So I gave this book. The book is The Best Laid Plans by Terry Fallis, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, maybe a 5 out of 5. I really like it because it's a book. I assume the author is Canadian because it talks about Canadian politics. It's a book I wouldn't gravitate towards because it's first and foremost like a satirical book, and second it's about like Canadian politics, which I care about because I am a active Canadian citizen, but I don't know all the nuances that go into our political system. So this book talks about this guy. He basically works for the Liberal Party as a speechwriter, and he basically finds that his partner or his girlfriend is having an affair with the other like cabinet minister. He cannot be in Ottawa at Parliament anymore, so he decides to leave. But because he is an active member, speechwriter of the Liberal Party, in this book at the time, the Conservative Party is in power, so the Liberal Party is like the not reigning power. So basically, the main character, he has to pay his dues. So he has to find a Liberal candidate to run in a riding in a small town in Ottawa, and he finds this person who doesn't really want to be a politician, but without like getting too much details, he makes a deal with our protagonist and he becomes an MP. And it's just really funny because it talks about how inefficient our political system is, and talks about all these things that I feel like people complain about, and this book kind of like validates those opinions. So it's a really fun book. There is a few more books that came out that follow the characters. I am interested in reading them, and also there was a one-time series made back in the 2000s off this book. So I think it'd be fun to watch the show as well, just to like learn a bit more about Canadian politics, specifically the bureaucracy that goes behind it, because it was really inefficient. The last book I listened to was Sociopath, a memoir by Patric, and I gave it a 5 out of 5. Again, it's a default for me, right? It's her lived experience. And basically, this book was very interesting to me because I didn't really know the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, or I kind of knew in the sense that like my understanding of it or my interpretation was a psychopath were like people who were serial murderers, or a sociopath for people that were just part of a society and found ways to navigate and blend into society. But the truth is, at least in this book, Patric talks about her being a sociopath and how she has a lack of apathy and a lack of emotion, and she has this like buildup, and to relieve this buildup and pressure, she has to do something that harms others or something that's like seen as like crazy or whatever. So this book talks about her childhood, how she knew at a young age that something was wrong with her, or she didn't think anything was wrong with her, but people around her, like her mom, her parents, would tell her something was wrong with her, and just talks about her experience. And because at the time when she was growing up, mental health and mental illness isn't the way that we talk about it now, there wasn't a lot of resources for her, so she went into sociology and psychology and became, I guess, one of the 4 founders of Sociopath and research and studies and stuff. So this book was really good to hear her raw and very candid experience about being a sociopath, and at times it was very uncomfortable for me because I don't identify as a sociopath, and I don't think I have sociopathic tendencies. So reading this book and hearing her reaction to things and her actions based on her reaction to things was very uncomfortable for me to listen to, because that's not something that I would think about or to do. So yeah. However, reading this book after and reading the reviews online, it seems that her credibility is kind of questionable. So that was kind of a fun thing to learn, because she is a sociopath. So yeah, it was a really good listen. I think it's worth listening to if you're curious about it, but it is like a very uncomfortable listen. Thanks for watching until the end of my December wrap-ups. I hope you had a great year of reading, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!